The big one that says here.
Kia whai tahi ngā mahi katoa, tū mai, tūtaha, aroha atu, aroha mai, tātou i a tātou katoa.
Kia ora.
I tuia I te ata, te whakaro he roto, tono atua kuringa ringa, te ringa o te kura, te kaka no iruia, te upo are are, tono atua kuringa ringa, te ringa o te kura.
I've just got a point of information. Yes. In that first line of the second verse, is that meant to be Tori Toa?
Te.
It is there. We need to
typo.
Thank you.
Okay, kia ora everybody and welcome to today's meeting on the 1st of June. It's great to have you all with us. Yeah, actually in a boardroom, it's fantastic. So I'll just note that the meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the board's YouTube channel. And that link is on the front of the agenda. Would like to send a warm welcome to any members of the public that may be watching on the live stream, and also obviously a welcome to board members and staff. It's great to have you with us. Also warm welcome to public forum people as well. Hi. Just a reminder that any criticism or disrespect of any elected members and or staff, we will suspend the discussion. Okay. In saying that, we will kick off our meeting. Okay, we'll start with our apologies. Do we have any? We have no.
An apology for lateness from Jake.
Cool, thank you. And we've got Sunita online. Hello, Sunita.
Hello everyone. Sorry not being there because I have flu symptoms. So far negative in test, but hopefully that lasts. So, but yeah, I decided not to be there, so I don't pass it to you guys.
Thanks, Sunita. Okay, do I have a mover for Jake?
Or
Jake's lateness.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Michelle and Sarah. All in favour?
Right.
Carried, thank you. Any declarations of interest for today's meeting? No one's interested?
We're all fascinated.
Yeah. Fabulous. Okay, that is great. Confirmation of previous minutes. Can I have a mover for those? Tim? And a seconder, Jackie. Any discussion at all? Nope. Cool. All in favour? Carrie, thank you. Okay. So we are going to start our public forum today with the topic of the summer tennis facilities, and we have Nelson Glass, and he is with us. And I think we have a PowerPoint presentation as well. Now, Nelson, come take a seat. Thank you so much for being with us. Great to have you here. Does Nelson have a clicker?
Yes, he does.
Perfect. Do you know how to use the clicker, Nelson?
Yeah, it's like that. Great.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Oh, that's fabulous. Fire away.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for having me here today. My name's Nelson Glass. I'm the treasurer of the Summer Tennis and Squash Club. And I'm here to present a wee proposal that we've put together for the development of a red zone land, which is next to our club. This is the Summer Tennis Club, and like many clubs in Christchurch, we benefited from a rebuild after the earthquake. We've got 4 tennis courts outside the clubhouse and 3 squash courts inside the clubhouse. For those that don't know where we are, has that got a pointer on it?
Yes, it does. Might turn the light. It does have a pointer right at the top where the red line is.
Anyway.
That's
Oh, yeah. So that's a tennis club there. This is the Esplanade, and that's Scarborough Park with the kids' playground and paddling pools, the clock tower. And 2 blocks away is the Summer Tennis Club, sort of tucked down the bottom of Scarborough Hill. Just a little bit about our club. We were voted the best club in Canterbury by the Canterbury Tennis Association for 21, and we're hoping to repeat that this year. We've got more adult members per court than any club in New Zealand, with 360 adult members and a wait list of 40. We're much more than just the tennis and squash club. We're a multi-sport club offering tennis, squash, table tennis, darts. We've got a basketball hoop, and we encourage kids to come and kick a soccer ball around or a skateboard. It's just a great place for people to hang out. We've also got one of the lowest fee structures of any tennis and squash club in the country. That's one of our 3 squash courts in action. Now that's a table of fees. Not all clubs are on there, but you can see as far as tennis clubs go, we're well below the Christchurch average for a family membership. And as far as joint tennis and squash clubs go, you've got to look more nationwide, and we're almost half the national average in fee structure for membership. It's something we're really proud of, actually. We work really hard to maintain it. We're a social club, and people come and hang out, and that helps assist us in keeping our memberships low. I put quite a bit of time into our booking system and went back and tried to collect some data so that you guys can see how much our courts are used. And so the right-hand column really is the one that counts. And you can see that in February and March, we're up around 6 hours per court per day of use of court book time, which is incredible, really. And then in the darkest months of the year, we fall back to a couple of hours a day. Now, as far as the red zone land in our proposal, it's this block in here, which is basically halfway between Scarborough Park and our club. It's a very similar size of land too to the current tennis club issue. Now, our proposal is to develop the red zone land next to our club into a public multi-sport facility and park for all of Christchurch residents to enjoy when visiting some. We'd provide public tennis, basketball, possibly pickleball courts, all close to Scarborough Park, which would widen the appeal of a well-loved corner of Christchurch, which is regularly visited by lots of people. We'd also put a cycleway in because that piece of land's currently closed, trying to link Nayland Street back to Heberdean. And some tennis club would look to cover the cost of the 2 tennis courts, as well as help to fundraise for the project as a whole to try and minimise any cost to Christchurch ratepayers. I don't know who knows pickleball, but there's a lot of people talking about it down our club all the time, and it's the fastest growing sport in the USA currently. And that's a pickleball court. It's often played in doubles, scored a bit like squash. It's very cheap, a cheap paddle with a plastic ball, and it's high action and a lot of fun.
Just to let you know, Nelson, we've got about a minute left.
Okay, I'm almost there. Basketball, obviously we all know what basketball is, and we can put a court in on that. And we had an artist do a sketch, a landscape architect, just showing how 2 courts would fit on that space, but obviously there's really changing the ground and change things. So just the key points of my proposal, we'd like to develop the red zone land next to our club into a multi-court, multi-sport facility. We're currently the #1 club in Canterbury, and we have one of the lowest fee structures in the country. We've kept our membership because we just can't meet demand on our courts, especially in peak time. We would look to fund the development of the 2 tennis courts and help fundraise for the development as a whole. And we would like to ask tonight for the support of our proposal from the Waikura Linwood-Central-Heathcote Community Board. Thank you very much for your time.
Cool, thank you, Nelson. Really appreciate you coming and speaking to us. There's a couple of questions from our board members. I just found out about pickleball yesterday. Never heard about it at all and learned all about it yesterday. So that sounds very, very cool. All right, we'll start with Sarah then Tim.
Thanks so much for that. Have you approached the council organisation, council staff so far, and if so, what's the response been?
Yeah, they've been pretty positive, actually. They've come into a meeting with us and they've assessed the red zone land. There's some debate about whether it's free from rockfall or not, but it's definitely quite a bit of space there. We think we can make it work.
But it needs to be something that's much longer term than the current transitional arrangements
Yes,
which are
that's right.
available.
Well, it'll be quite an investment for our club. And
That's right.
And we look to pay for that by freeing up the wait list, which would allow us to take on a lot more members, and that extra revenue would pay for the development, of course.
And have you been advised of a process to go through to apply? Because my understanding is that we don't really have a process currently for that longer term stuff.
No, so we're waiting for the transition of the land from LINS, I think, to the council as on a more permanent basis. Yeah. And I understand that this is part of the process from talking to you guys and trying to garner some community support for that project.
Yeah. I mean, my understanding is that we've got all the Fort Hills land already. But I think that those the long term planning for the non-Avon Taco River corridor hasn't really had any clarity. So thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Tim?
Yeah, thanks for your proposal. I've walked through that area and it would make a fantastic area for sports. Does your future plans there include putting out lights?
No, it definitely wouldn't. We're putting lights on our court.
Yeah.
And I'd imagine in the weekends it would be used mainly by Christchurch residents. But in those summer months when that table showed how much pressure we're under, we'd step down there and use those courts as well. Yeah. So we're in the process of, we've got lights on 2 of the 4 courts at our club. Yep. And we're in the process of putting lights on court 1 as well. And so that's going to free up the spots.
Good, thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Yanni?
Sorry, we just, after 21 years, we're microphones, it's fantastic. So it's one of the good things take time. I just wanted to check if you talked to Tennis Canterbury and also if you're aware of the council sports facilities plan, which is currently in draft. Because my understanding is each of the codes being asked to put in their needs into that process.
Oh, no, I haven't done that, but I'll look into that.
Okay.
I understand Canterbury Tennis is under federal pressure just currently. So.
Right, okay. Well, we can find out, but I think it would be helpful. Council hasn't adopted that plan yet. Okay. So if there was a way in which we can make sure that we get your voice captured, I think that would be really important.
Well, I really appreciate any assistance. Obviously, this is the first time for me doing anything along these lines. So any assistance from you guys more than that would be really appreciated.
Yeah.
No, cool. Well done, and it's exciting. And thank you for what you're doing. It's really impressive.
Thanks, Yanni. Michelle?
So it does sound fantastic, and I love that you keep the fees low to make it accessible.
Yeah.
And I just want to be clear, so you want to find a way that you can get the use of the red zone land, but would you also be requiring funding for it from the council, or would you be like fundraising for costs of the improvements to the land?
We think we've got the money to put tennis courts in.
Yep.
And talking to Whitney about the potential for a stage development that perhaps it was broken into parts.
Mm-hmm.
But the more I talk to club members about it, the more it sounds like there could be charity type funding available. And as a project, we're just trying to raise all the money. I think.
Potentially, you might get it over the line quicker once you get to.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and there's enough going on in Christchurch at the moment, isn't there? To burden the ratepayers with more for some, it'd be nice to be able to not do this.
Yeah, good work.
Thanks, Daryl?
Just a statement. Well done. I fully support your proposal because the tennis court's not far from where I live. On my regular walks, I note that they are constantly in use. So that's great. Thank you.
It's been incredible the growth down there over recent years.
Cool. Thank you, Daryl. Sarah?
Thanks so much. Just one last thing. In that over the last few years, I have actually had approaches from other members of the community with other ideas for that same piece of land. And those have been sort of fed through into the organisation. I don't know what's happened to them because it's really been a process. But just to let you know that while this looks really cool, And I think it's a useful way to use the land that's community focused and active and all of those kind of things. That there have been other expressions of interest from members of the summer community, because it is a key piece of land that people are really aware of and seems imminently suitable for a range of uses. So I just want to, like, I'm supportive, but just so you know that there are others as well, and there will have to be some sort of process. Does that make sense?
We're certainly not taking it as a given.
Yeah. And there may be space for more than one activity, right? So, yeah.
What sort of other things have been proposed?
Good question.
These have been, I mean, there's a fruit tree specific proposal, the community garden stuff, that could be aligned. There have also been private individuals who would like to use it for
Residential.
not for residential, no, it won't be able to be used for residential, but for non-residential private use, those kind of things. So, I mean, community use, I think, is much better, but there's been a range.
Sure.
Also, I just got one question, which is, this is the only bit of land in the offing. Is there any other that could be, just when Sarah's saying that it could be in pot demand?
Yeah, I mean, there is plenty of red zone land in the summer now, but this,
That's a very key site, though.
that really suits our proposal, you know.
There is the one over there, there's land over the other side, on Wakefield Ave, opposite the big fund and stuff, with a fire station and stuff, that will be eventually, and along there as well.
And there's a community garden going in at the bottom of Richmond Hill as well.
Yeah, which is pretty cool.
Which is supported by the local
Yeah.
residents. It's very popular.
So, I mean, sorry, I'm putting this on. So what I've done is I've just got to just put a few words in, just requesting staff advice on the process to go through, so we can actually do this and process not just for this one, but actually for all of that.
Exactly.
Port Hills red zone land, because actually we're getting a few requests on a range of things now, and those longer term things, we really do need to be really clear on the process so that we can actually do some proper planning. So, yeah, so that you get the advice on exactly how to apply and how that works, and that we do as well.
Cool, thanks, Sarah. I've got another question from Daryl and then Yanni, and then we'll go wrapping it up.
I guess the key thing with respect to your proposal is the key proximity of the location to your current course.
That's right. I love the way it's sandwiched right between us and Scarborough Park too, which is that real busy corner of summer on weekend. And so you get a lot of Christchurch residents coming out and sharing the space as well.
It's really good.
Whereas with sort of edible garden or whatever,
Can be.
the
Exactly.
flexibility to go in a number of places is more evident.
That's right. It's strategically done.
Yeah.
Thank
What
you.
it was made for us.
Cool, Yanni?
Yeah, I mean, it was just on the wording that's been put up. I don't really start with the fact that actually one of the drivers behind this is the demand for tennis court space in summer. So we're doing a sports facilities plan. Maybe we could also ask advice how that demand can feed into that plan. Yeah, cool.
So what are your suggestions?
Provide advice on the process for longer term uses of the residential red zone land in Port Hills.
So it's actually a new
And
resolution, isn't
well,
it?
I just put adding development of the sports facilities plan.
I think that's a separate two.
It needs to go to two separate units.
Absolutely cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, could you just say that again, please, Yanni, quite and slowly, so we can.
Request
catch up?
staff provide advice on how the club can input into the draft sports facilities plan.
Did you want to just ask for advice on how to do it, or do we just want to ask directly that the information from here gets fed through into the development plan?
Well, you can.
Because otherwise
You've
it's the
had
advice.
from Cashmere Technical as well, like a few meetings ago, that the regional bodies have been asked to submit what the demand is, and then that's been put into the system, but I don't mind, just whatever is easiest.
Yeah, I think the
To
quickest.
get it considered, I mean, that plan, we've still got time because that plan hasn't been signed off, and it's only in draft development. So whatever's the best way, I'm open.
Well, yeah, we could ask that request staff include the information from the Summer Tennis Club in their consideration of the sports facilities plan.
Or would they be getting some regular input?
Because that way the information just goes straight through rather than,
So
so request staff include the information from the Sumner Tennis Club in their consideration of the draft sports facility plan.
Would it be helpful if they were able to have a direct conversation about it rather than just passing the information on?
Yeah, they will have to. That's part of it.
Okay.
So sorry, I guess because I know a little bit more, that we're trying to get this in place for a number of years now. My understanding again is it's been, the feedback's coming from the regional bodies. These tasked is to coordinate the feedback from the individual clubs. So that's why, I mean, I'm happy if that works, but I also think there's a process that's been established by staff, and the key thing is to understand that process so that it can feed up through the appropriate channel.
So you could add and ensure the club has input.
Yeah, whichever way is supposed to be the
Which would do
process.
both.
Otherwise, it could take 12 weeks for us to get the advice back.
Yeah, and we just want to put them in touch with
Yeah.
each other.
The plan's not going to be done.
Whether it's helpful, well, but at least you've got the opportunity.
Yeah. exactly.
Okay.
The other thing I thought I might do is take that presentation to some of the residents association and maybe they want to put it on their Facebook page.
It's a good idea.
It is
It's
a good
awesome
idea.
stuff. It's really good. Yeah.
Perfect, that is fantastic. All right, well, thank you so much for coming to speak with us this evening. And we obviously have a resolution that will get some action underway. So yeah, we will keep you in touch with any progress. Good luck.
Good luck.
Okay, board members, so if we are happy with the wording above, we have a mover. Tim and AC, Michelle. Okay. Thank you. See you. All in favour? Thank you, carried. Fabulous. Okay, so now online we have Jamie Dawson, and he is here to speak with us this evening around the cave rock mast lighting. So warm welcome to you, Jamie. Just to remind you that this is live streamed and recorded for our YouTube channel. And you have 5 minutes. And if you would like questions to be asked, please leave time at the end. Yeah, fire away. It's great to have you with us.
Cool. Kia ora koutou. Thank you very much, Waikura, for having me. Apologies, I can't be in person due to work commitments, but I appreciate the time. So I've just recently moved back from some time overseas back to Sumner. This is where I grew up as well. So very grateful to be living back here and raising my own family back here in the community. On return, I've just noticed that there seems to be a symbol, a religious symbol displayed on the cave rock light masts every night of the year. I understand from a religious point of view that it makes sense for certain days and for certain ceremonies, but every night as a public space promoting one religion just does not seem fair. Cave rock is for everyone and independent of their religion, and in doing so, this is essentially singling out other groups of people that are within our community. If there needs to be an illuminated cross on cave rock mast, how about we just have this only for religious ceremonies rather than every night of the year? It's actually an interesting parcel from a doctor called David Griffiths, written in the Otago Law Review 2011 on the New Zealand Bill of Rights, quoting him here: New Zealand is a secular state with no state religion in which religious and democratic structures are separated. In legislation and policy, the state respects freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. There are a few constraints on the freedom to manifest one's religious beliefs. Matters of religion and beliefs are deemed to be a matter for the private rather than public sphere. So that's what I'm here to talk about, and open to questions.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Daryl.
Thanks, Jamie. I've followed this with interest, and I refer you back to the Christchurch Press January the 22nd of this year, I really do think that we have a way through this and a potential resolution. But before I come to that, I just want to go through a couple of statements, some of which are attributed to you and some which are attributed to Tony Pengelly of the Breakfree Foundation, who was instrumental in getting the the lights on Cave Rock. So just bear with me for a minute. Looking at that Christchurch Press article, just quoting, the signal mast was erected on Cave Rock in 1864 and was used to alert ships of dangerous conditions. It was first lit up in the 1930s. It has not previously been illuminated since the 2011 earthquake. Not everyone has welcomed the decision, as the lights do not extend the entire width of the mast's horizontal beams, and one resident said the proportions make it look like a glowing cross. Now, Jamie Lewis said it's Christian symbolism by stealth. It's perfectly proportioned Christian mast, he said. Do you agree with that?
It's a different person.
Sorry.
Jamie Dawson, not Lewis.
Oh, sorry. Jamie Lewis said it's Christian symbolism by stealth. It's perfectly proportioned Christian mast, he said. Do you agree with that comment?
Yes.
Okay. Lewis would be totally fine if the lights were extended the full length and width of the cross, so it no longer looks like a Christian symbol. Despite the few detractors of the Facebook thread, the lights have been welcomed by the community. Now, Tony Pengelly in the same article says, with reference to your comment, if someone gave us the funds, I would be more than happy to do this extension, as I was also a little disappointed that the lighting doesn't go as far as we would have liked to the edges of the mast. She said, I think an extension would improve its appearance. So it seems to me that we have agreement with your comment and with what Tony Pengelly is saying. And what I would like to suggest to the board is that we get staff advice with respect to extending the lights the full length of the cross as you suggested and up the mast.
How do you feel about that, Jamie?
I guess the biggest concern that I would have with that is who's going to pay for that. Like if that's going to come out of community funding, then I don't feel like that's the best way for our assets to be housed. So that would be my question back to that.
Okay, well, my answer to that would be the first stage of the process would be, as I suggested, to get staff advice to extend the lights as you have recommended across the crossbar of the mast and up the mast itself. And then once we've got that, then we look at the next step.
Yeah, I think in terms of the funding of it would be the biggest question for me. If it had to be, funded by the community, I'm sure that there's better ways for those assets to flow to the community. If it was funded privately, perhaps that is a good outcome. Yeah.
Let's do the first step first.
Cool.
My recommendation to the board.
I've got Michelle and Sarah.
I'm not sure if you'll know, oh, hang on. I've got these new microphones that are very fancy. I'm not sure if you'll know the answer to this question, but when it was previously lit up, do you know what the lights look like at that stage?
Me? No, I don't.
Because I guess I'm interested to know, has this been a change relative to what happened in the past? So Sarah, you think it was lit differently? Is that what you're saying? Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Sarah?
So Jamie, even with the current configuration, because it was quite expensive to put it in, when we were when the fundraising kind of first started, there was some stuff in the media about the potential for lights going on for special occasions such as Christmas and Easter. So even with the current configuration, would you be happier if it was limited to just those days?
Yeah, look, for religious ceremonies, I completely understand for something like that to have that those symbols. However, yeah, every night of the year, it doesn't make sense as it's a public space.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Thanks, Sarah. Daryl?
Thanks, Jamie. The perception of the mast being lit at night and your perception that it is a cross, I'm just wondering, by relating it to specific times during the year, like Easter and Christmas, what you're actually doing is putting a religious connotation on something which currently doesn't have a religious connotation.
I disagree with that.
Yeah, and I will point out that the incorporation documents to the Break Free Foundation specify that it is there for the promotion of religious activity.
Okay, well then my question to Jamie is, how do you see the lights on the Bridge of Remembrance where there is a cross that is lit up? How do you see the lights on the crossing in the city that has a cross where it's lit up? How do you see the Red Cross shop that has a cross?
Private.
How do you see Summer School that has a cross? Private. Summer School?
It's the mast from that's not, that's the full length of the mast on the school.
I think
There's
really
crosses,
it's
right?
perception, symbolism is everywhere, and it's how we perceive to interpret it. And the story that I was sharing earlier was that in Auckland last year, there was a cloud configuration made by an artist, and a couple of people complained that it represented a phallic symbol. The Deputy Mayor of Auckland, Penny Hustle, said, perhaps just look at it and think of it as a cloud. So my recommendation to the board is, as previously stated, I believe that we have some agreement from what Jamie has said originally in the media article, what Tony Pengelly has agreed, that we seek staff advice about extending the lights out. Thank you.
Cool, thank you, Daryl. Sarah?
So I don't have any more questions for Jamie, but are we in a general discussion?
I think we are in a general discussion. So Jamie, I think, did anybody have any extra questions for Jamie?
Just going back to, I guess, Jamie, that we digressed a little bit in our discussion with Daryl there, but just that you are open to, if it was cost neutral, as it were, you're concerned about the cost, but you are open to the idea of changing the configuration of the lights.
If the lights need to be on every night of the year, then they should not be across. They can be the full extent of the mast, both up and across.
Yeah, okay. Thanks for clarifying, Jamie.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Michelle, and thank you, Jamie. Look, Jamie, please stay online where I think we're going to have a little bit more of a discussion around this, not too long, because we definitely over time. But thank you so much for coming and presenting to us this evening. And yes, we will go through that discussion now. Sarah?
Thanks. Listen, I've had a significant number of messages since the lights went up from members of the community who have some disquiet over the shape of them and the fact that they are up every day, when prior to the earthquakes they were only lit sort of 3 or 4 nights a year. And when Tony presented to the board That was our understanding as well. The license happens to be different and says that they can be lit every night. But when the presentation came to us, it was clear that it was only going to be for a few nights a year. And at that point, the board supported it. It's also, I've also had some communication from someone who's concerned that in the application for the license, there was some sections on whether the community had been consulted, and that was up to the applicant to do that. And they said that they had support from members of the community, including the Southern Historic Society, and it turns out that that's not the case. It's looking like the information I've had. And so I've actually asked staff for some advice on that, because that would be an issue with the application for the license as well. You'll note in that article, I think that the some Historic Society said that they hadn't been involved. And yeah, I think that there are probably some process issues. So I think that asking staff for advice, not necessarily just on extending it, but some advice on the license application itself and the potential to limit it to religious holidays only. I think getting advice on that is probably a good idea, and it may be that we end up going and consulting on with the community rather than it being the staff delegation.
Thanks, Sarah. Tim.
Yeah, when this came to the board, I'm a Christian, by the way. I didn't have any sense that it was going to be a Christian symbol up there. And certainly didn't have any sense that it was going to be on every night of the year. I think there's some middle ground there. One is people have been talking about timing, so it's 365 days or 3. There are many other options. I think we need some advice, and it needs to go back for consideration about what's the most appropriate thing. But I think it would be very inappropriate to have a specifically Christian symbol on that rock, in that space. But it is appropriate to remember our history.
Yeah. So the one time it's going blue instead of so there's one other time of year that a couple of things have been mentioned online as well, and that's that Matariki is coming up, when actually we need to be having less light in the sky, if you like. Yeah. And there were some comments about whether in the meantime, over that Matariki period, it could be not lit. And I think that maybe as a start, while we discuss the other issues, so you'll notice that, you know, the City Council isn't doing Matariki fireworks, we're doing a Mid-Winter Fireworks Festival. But the advice around cultural things is actually we need to be leaving the sky dark and clear. So maybe that might be a start that we could request as a board. And it might be a request of the community if they don't mind, just over that Matariki period for switching it off.
Good suggestion. I've got Sunita with her hand up, and then Daryl.
Cool. I agree with Sarah that for Matariki, definitely we should not have the religious symbol which looks like religious symbol to be lit up. But I was just thinking that when it came to board, it did not look like a cross at that point. So I'm sort of thinking that the bulbs, so are they only like bulbs are only up to that point, or they are there and they're just not lit up? So I would like to know more about that. And second thing, just coming to my mind is, why don't we just look into lighting the pole, so vertical rather than having it like a cross? So and thinking about whether it should be there for 365 days or not. Again, going to the historical pre-earthquake time, it wasn't. So I don't think so. The problem is whether it should be 365 days or not, but it's the symbolization of it. So definitely we'll seek advice and see how, we'll talk to community a bit more about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Anita. Daryl and then Sarah.
Thank you. I have no problem with the suggestions of taking advice, but what I would say is that in that process of taking advice, that the Sumner Community Residents Association be consulted, because my understanding is that they are fairly much in place of the status quo. When this did come to the board, not for one moment did I think of Christian symbolism, and like Tim, I also have Christian affiliations, but I don't see it as a cross. I see it as a representation of historical significance. And I think it's extremely important that we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I have to say that I'm a little bit confused with respect to what Jamie has said with respect to his comments in the press.
It's a different Jamie, it's not the same person.
Sorry?
Yeah, it's not the same person.
Yeah,
There are two
okay.
different Jamies and something.
Sorry, apologies. I've got it. The comments that are made, which appear to be some inconsistencies across the spectrum.
Cool, thank you, Daryl. All right, Sarah.
I did actually go back and have a look at the original presentation that came to us. It's still sitting there in the hub. And if you look through the slides and you see the line drawn on the mast, it actually is, it's on us, right? It's exactly what's up there currently. It wasn't framed in the way that was done. And while people are saying yes or no, it's not a Christian cross, the reality is that when that specific configuration was put up, pre-earthquake, a long time ago, it's been up there for a while, and there is some historic stuff with that, it was put up to be lit at Christmas and Easter and those other religious holidays because they saw it in that way. You know, that's why it was on those days and in that configuration.
Yeah.
So yes, it's historic. It's not the original purpose, and the lighting was never used to help ships cross the bar because they never crossed at night. And I got that through from historian of the area and stuff like that. So the lighting wasn't to do with the actual ships crossing and those kind of things. But you know, it was originally put up in the form of a Christian cross for those Christian celebrations. And so there is no doubt that that is the deliberate shape of it. Whether people see it that way now or not is different.
Yeah.
But I think asking you for advice, and advice can come back. We can have a conversation with the community and with the current license holder. And in the meantime, Matariki is actually quick upon us, and so it may be that an informal conversation needs to be had between the organisation and Tony about that.
Okay, cool. All right, so I feel we have discussed this quite fully. Do we have words for Liz? Obviously, we are looking for advice on the request staff advice.
Okay, request staff advice to extend the lights across the entire width of the mast's horizontal beams and
up to the top, or
and up the mast.
so are we able to add to that? So request staff, so potentially request staff advice on the leasing arrangements for the cave rock lights and on options, including the one that Daryl's just presented, and on limiting the number of days.
Leasing arrangements. It's an alternative.
Yeah, just advice on all of those things, and that way we get one complete piece of advice rather than something coming and then us having to go back for more.
On limiting the number of days in consultation with the community.
Yeah, anything that we do is, I would think, in consultation.
Potentially confirming what was originally.
It's just advice.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't need to get advice and consultation. If we do anything, we'll be in consultation based on the advice.
And clearly, if the deed has been breached, then we have a question mark over some things.
Yeah, the copy of the license is available. So.
I've just got Sunita with her hand up as well.
Yeah, Alex, I just want to mention is that we are talking about at the moment horizontal light to lit up, but I would definitely want to know whether we can just replace those horizontal light to the vertical one, and it could be a pole lit up or just one line lit up. So we are not incurring extra cost of, another lights. Just replacement of those lights.
I'd like to.
Can we just let them finish this bit? Did you get Sunita's comment as well? So that was.
Sorry, we're just trying to keep up.
Yeah, no, that's why I stopped everything. So she was just asking for advice around just having the vertical mast lit up rather than having it in the.
So we could say just including options to the way that the lights are arranged.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool, that would be good.
But I'd like us to have confirmed what the previous practice was prior to the earthquake.
Actually, that's a good idea, yeah.
I think you had that in the staff advice that I provided.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
it was. Yeah.
You're right.
So just the last words there, and that the community is consulted. We wouldn't be consulting yet because we're just getting advice. So it's on the potential for community consultation, advice on the potential for community consultation as part of it.
Well,
The thing is, it's within a staff delegation currently,
yes, it is.
and the lease is already signed. So there may not be a lot of potential
For the community to be consulted. That's right. Was there also a matter about the lights being off from Matariki? Yes, I was just going to ask number 3 on about Matariki.
So maybe request staff talk to the license holder. About the potential to switch off the lights for Matariki for a period over Matariki, because it's not just one night. You know, we have a single public holiday in a period of time.
Over Matariki.
Yeah, over the period of Matariki, because I don't want them to interpret that as just being for the 24th.
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but Matariki, sometimes people will now just assume it's just the 24th.
So that first one can come off, can't it? Because the second one, so if we delete recommendation 1. Is there also a question someone raised about process for application of for a license?
Well, it's advice on the leasing arrangements.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So
So,
yeah.
All right.
the answer will be that one.
Okay, we have thoroughly discussed this. And thank you again, Jamie, for coming and speaking to us this evening. So we will get some action on your public forum moving forward, and we'll keep you up to date with that as well. But do I have a mover for a motion that's written behind me.
Sure.
Sarah?
Daryl can.
Daryl?
Sarah, second.
Daryl and Sarah, all in favour. Carrie, thank you. Fabulous. All right, Jamie, we'll be in touch with you about any developments.
Great. No, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Take care, bye.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, just before we proceed, Jake has just texted me, he got held up and he's wondering if he's able to join by Zoom, if the link could be emailed through to him, please.
Yeah,
Thanks.
we'll do that. Thanks, Michelle. Okay. So we have finished our public forum. There are no petitions this evening. So we're moving on to item 7. That is page 15 of your agendas. And this is the Beach Hospitality Limited landlord consent and effective party approval for proposed sunlouver alterations of 25 Esplanade. And we've got Grant with us. Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for being here this evening.
No worries at all.
Obviously, we have read the report, and I know that some staff members have, some board members have asked some questions or have some wording, but I'm just wondering, is there anything that you wanted to add to it before we ask you questions?
Nothing further from me at this stage, just happy to discuss, take questions.
Perfect, thank you. Daryl, yep.
I think everybody's aware that I have put a proposed amendment through, and the planner has communicated with Liz and Liz to the board with respect to agreement on matters. So my amendment to the proposal would be that we approve on behalf of the council as landlord the proposed sunlouver alterations subject to the cedar planning of the uprights in the top facing facade. I've sent that through to us.
Cool, thank you, Daryl. Did we have more questions? Any questions? Michelle?
So here you go. So just in terms of the process, the resource consent had been obtained, and that was where the colours and specifications were set out. And then it came to us, and I guess that, and I'm just exploring the process with you, but it did end up feeling like that it was a little bit of a rubber stamping exercise from us. And I just wonder, just because there were some concerns, and I was one of the people just to make sure that it was something that was sympathetic to the structure. And I was not in any way wanting to make it difficult for the lessee. But just that we could sort that out. And I just wondered if you could speak a little bit to that process and whether that's the usual way of doing things, or if there's any scope for that to change in the future, or I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I suppose in an ideal world, you probably would have had a chance to approve the plans before they went in for the consenting process. And there's a note there that the tenant sort of realises that they potentially should have done that first,
Right,
before going for the RMA side of things. So we would encourage the plans to come to the board first, and then to go to the RMA.
Okay,
Because then it's streamlined, isn't it?
yeah,
So,
yeah, that's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
So it
right.
means that it probably another time would not happen that way, because we didn't want to feel like, oh, we're trying to hold the works up, but
Sure.
yeah, very good. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Any more questions? No?
Sorry.
Yes.
I may have missed this, but have we asked the amendment?
Oh,
Sorry, I'm
maybe
sorry.
that was the question from Daryl. So the amendment that Daryl just read out, that can be
Mhm.
worked through.
Yes, yeah, the tenant is happy
Yes.
to go down that track with the cedar.
Oh,
They offered that as a suggestion in their return on information, request for information. I've touched base with planning staff. They didn't see any hurdles in that treatment. So the tenant is happy, would be happy to go with that.
Cool, that's awesome. Thank you. Daryl?
No, just like to say thank you for that accommodation. And from an aesthetic point of view, I think it looks much better to have that cedar cladding on the uprights and on the facade. And in the photographs that she sent through, I went through and had a look. They took a photograph from up on Clifton Hill, and in the foreground it showed the new Sunwell Surf Club, how everything tied in and looked really aesthetically pleasing on the eye in the environment. And to have the same for the restaurant, I think will be good, notwithstanding the blue roof stands out like a sore thumb. But I do remember some commentary with respect to maybe investigating making that a little bit more sympathetic and easy on the eye with respect to painting it grey rise or something.
Well, the historic building was quite bright.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, and also, thank you to Michelle for requesting some historical information, because I actually found that quite interesting. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. And I think your amendment would cover it. It still allows for the fins to be the colour that was proposed. So it's just the uprights and the place here, the front part of it that you're looking to have in cedar, and tenants happy to do that.
That's great. Through you, our thanks to the tenants. It wasn't trying to make life difficult. It was really just about, given the nature of the building, having it aesthetically pleasing and a bit more easy on the eye.
I'll pass that on.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Perfect, thank you so much. Thank you for coming and speaking with us this evening, and thank you for the work that you've obviously done with the Lacey. I understand, so we really appreciate it.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, so do we have the
That's what you wanted.
amendment up there? Is everybody happy with that? I think Daryl's happy to move that, and second, Michelle, you're going to do it not seconding tonight. Congratulations. All in favour?
Aye.
Thank you, Carrie. Okay, we are now moving on to item 8. That is 373 Chung Street, proposed no stopping, and we have Sally Ann. Hey. Lovely to see you. Thank you for joining us. So did you have anything else that you would like to add to the report or go over?
No, I've got nothing extra to what's in there.
Okay, perfect. That is fantastic. Do we have any questions? No. Yay! Fabulous. All right. Well, anything to say? But you don't have to later all the way back.
Roll back.
No.
It's my first time, so.
Yeah, usually it's get up and get down. But okay, so do we have a mover for the proposed national bank restrictions? Jackie, yes. Fabulous. And it's
Michelle.
Linda.
It's the seconding thing. It's your job tonight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Michelle's seconding. Okay, and all in favour?
Aye.
Fabulous, thank you, Carrie.
Debate it.
Oh, if you would
I'm
like
just
to.
kidding. I'm just kidding.
Really nice.
That would be your problem to make if we debate.
Oh, no.
Okay, moving on to item 9, and we've got Wakefield Avenue, Arnold Street, proposed no stopping restrictions. Same again, nothing to
Yeah,
add.
there's nothing extra.
Perfect. Too easy, any question?
Yeah.
Nope. Fabulous. Roll on back. Okay, do we have a mover for that? Tim? And second, Jackie.
Oh.
Change that up. That's fabulous. Okay, all in favour?
Aye.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Diane. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much.
Scroll. Okay, moving on to item 10. This is our discretionary response fund transfers.
Take it
Yeah, that's why you like it.
Yeah.
It's page 75, so we'll just like this.
Page 75.
Ta-da.
Just take it as we were.
Yeah.
Unless anyone's got questions.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
Ooh, go Selena.
It's the excitement of the evening, isn't it? Okay, so we've got our mover and our seconder. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Cool, thank you. That is
Resounding.
carried. Anyway. I just can't see people's mouths moving, so. Okay, thank you, everybody. Oops. So, sorry, item, yeah, so on to item 11. We're happy to move it. Select members of change.
Then I've got something to do.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay. Selected members exchange.
I've got to move it. Okay, cool. All right. So, we have Sarah, then Jackie, then Daryl. So far.
Okay, two things. Firstly, I've had just tonight I've had a chat to Tim about it, but Daryl will be aware as well. There's been significant number of people making complaints recently about a range of issues to do with parking enforcement, traffic speeds, and being able to pass on the hills. Clifton, Richmond, and Mount Pleasant. There's been cars knocked, windows knocked, when there is roads blocked because people are parking in inappropriate places, and then sometimes footpaths blocked. So there's a number of CSRs and for the individual instances. But I've had a talk to a few people, and it sounds like, and checked in on the various community Facebook pages when people have been doing this stuff, and it seems like probably what's required is kind of an area-wide both parking and speed management plan for that hill area. For a number of years now, that area's been requesting lower speeds. You don't remember the old John Campbell stuff at Mount Pleasant School, but also, it's really unclear where to park and where not to park on the hills, so that you can get traffic passing each other and visiting homes and all of those kind of things. So I'm wondering if we could request advice on the development of a speed management or a parking plan for the Mount Pleasant Summer Hill area, and advice on speed management. Whether it could be included in the consultation for the slow speed neighbourhoods kind of stuff. If it could be advice on incorporating it into the speed management program. I think that's the word I'm supposed to use. Yeah. So that's kind of the first one. And separate to the issue with the awful things with those cars, the rocks on the accelerators the other night, which has just been awful and really scary for many people. The other one is the ongoing issues with water on the hills. Lots of broken pipes, leakages onto resident properties. We've raised it as a sort of general issue before, but I was wondering, and it keeps popping up in lots of individual things in CSRs and working through individual ones. But I was wondering if we could get a briefing, I don't often request briefings, on the state of the water pipe network on the hills and plans and what the plans are to work on those.
Yeah.
And I think that as a board, it would be really good to get that information. I know there's not a lot of time for briefings left, but I mean, it could go to the new board.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm just wanting clarification, Sarah.
Yeah.
You're saying on the hills, but are you saying
on-
Sumner, Mount Pleasant, Redcliffs, or?
Yeah, Sumner through to Mount Pleasant.
Thank you.
Leanne did say something, brought it up at the last council meeting,
Yeah.
and she said that the council would be looking at a plan for that whole area, so.
Yeah, so it'd be good to get a briefing.
Tie into
Good to
that.
know.
Yeah, so it'd be really good to see what the current state is and what the plans are.
Sarah,
I'm on blue here.
is it like
Oh,
in
sorry, turn mine
regards to
off.
Sarah's?
Yeah.
Can we extend that to the flat in summer as well, Sarah? The reason I say that is because the number of water leaks that personally I report is extremely high, and I'd really be very keen to see if we can extend the nature of getting some feedback as to the state of the pipes on the flat as well.
I guess so. I mean, one of the things is because there's a lot of flat in the ward, different areas as well. The thing about the flooding on the hills is that because it's on the slope, it doesn't just stay put or run into a small drain. It's often running onto people's properties.
Yeah.
And it seems to be a particular area that's incredibly difficult. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to extend it, but then where do you stop
Then
with
it's
all the flat
likely to be too
areas?
big.
The whole board
So
area.
if we would just keep to the hills for now, because it's a sort of,
Specific
yeah,
issue.
And
Yeah.
may I suggest that we do Scarborough through to Mount Pleasant?
yes, that'd be great, thank you.
You can, like, if you go on the water report, you can just put streets and just go by
Yes.
each address, and you'll get a really good idea. Like, I've done it in my street, and there's a whole bunch of like stuff that's way over what's normal.
No,
And you
this
can see
is,
the water.
yeah, it's not necessarily stuff on people's own property, it's the council stuff on the council pipes on council land that are breaking and then going into people's
Oh,
property.
okay.
Yeah. It's the council network, not the private property owners.
Oh, so you're not talking about domestic water connections from the main?
No, I'm talking about the actual council pipe network that brings the drinking water and takes the wastewater away. Mostly the drinking water pipes.
Oh,
Yeah.
Drinking water, thank you.
Because those ones not just, sorry.
How's that
disabled
different
pipes,
from
because some of it's
domestic
stormwater pipes, some of it's
Yeah, well, I thought you were
wastewater.
meaning stormwater, not including the drinking water, so do you want
I think
to?
some of it's stormwater pipes. And
Yes.
So it's, there are maps that show all of them.
I
So,
know.
yeah.
Are you asking for conditional assessment?
The state of the pipes on the hills and the plans to address it, basically. Just so we can see what that is. And the thing is, because you get all those underrunners and then you get slumping in people's properties and there's a.
Yeah, it's over.
Yeah.
Yeah, now who's Linwood?
Yes.
Can I just ask Sarah, just in terms of just rewinding about the parking and the speed issue?
Yeah.
Are you saying there's like a systematic way that you can go through an area and ask them to do that kind of assessment? Because I mean, I know there's a slow speeds neighbourhood as one sort of approach for areas, but I'm just interested in what you were requesting.
Yeah. So the speed stuff, so it's really clear and that for most of the areas on the hills, the 50, even 50 is not a safe speed to go along in a lot of those corners, especially some of them don't have that kind of stuff, and they're quite narrow and windy. So having an assessment to work out actually what the appropriate speed is on the hills and then consult with the community on doing that, I think would be really good. When it comes to the parking management, you'll see that we get reports sometimes on, like we have today, with individual corners and things where there's been an issue with people parking and visibility and those kind of things. But if we just did that on a case by case as every individual CSR came up, it would take a really long time. But if you did a sort of an area wide, so one of the two key hotspots at the moment happen to be Richmond and Clifton Hills, and sometimes the way people are parking or where they're parking is either blocking the footpath or it's blocking the road so that traffic can't get around, and there's big trucks going so people don't want the cars dinged. But actually nowhere up there or in very few places are there any yellow lines, so there's no actual restrictions, and sometimes people are parking in inappropriate places. And if you had areas where it was actually really clear where you couldn't park, it would make everyone's travel much easier. But if you did it on an area wide basis, it would be much more efficient.
And that's the thing, is that's like asking an area wide assessment.
Well, because it's those main, it's not necessarily the small side streets, those main routes that go up that at the top get very narrow and windy especially. And when you've still got like a new subdivision going in, and you've got big trucks coming in and out, and then you've got maybe one car parked there and one car parked there, and no one can get past because there's a truck, or where those Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I
But if you
understand.
just, if I understand, just that happened today.
It's the process I'm interested in.
Yeah.
I think you're quite, I think you're quite right, that you used the word parking in appropriate places. I would probably be a little hard hitting and say many are parked illegally.
Yes. Yeah, especially on footpath.
Yeah, I struggle to see what the answer to this is, because on Mount Pleasant, you get places where are you going to yellow line one side of the road all the way up, or what's going to happen? Because at the moment, people rely on certain common sense, and going up and down Celeries as I do, people usually look ahead and work out whether they should slow down to let someone else get through the two opposite cars, because there's no way four cars can fit across the road.
No, that's right.
But I don't know. I've struggled to envisage a technical solution that would work better than
Common sense.
common sense.
And it would depend on, like, Celery Ave itself isn't as bad as, like, for example, Clifton and Richmond.
No.
And so it might be appropriate in some areas and not in others,
Okay.
but having a look at it across and going, actually, these are the areas. I know even on the Linwood-Central-Heathcote, for example, we had, the top of Port Hills Road. So we actually all along the park there, remember a couple of years ago, we put yellow lines all the way and down one side because of people were struggling to get in and out, and the parking in the park and stuff.
Okay, advice would be
Just
good.
advice.
Perfect, thank you. Did you have anything else here?
No, that's the two good things.
Oh, thank you. I've got Jackie next and then Gerald.
I actually want to talk about the subject that everyone hates at the moment. At the briefing on Monday, there wasn't a lot of time for the type of questions that I wanted to ask. A lot of the response to the Bromley Sense issue is around timeframes for getting it fixed, around compensation of money for how people, for additional costs and so on. My concerns are around health. We've heard a lot about this being an environmental crisis. I'm concerned about a health crisis. I see numerous reports now of people suffering from itchy eyes, crooked tummies, so on and so forth. I've also seen numerous reports of people going to their GPs and being sent away as being silly. I'm concerned about the long-term effects of this chemical pollution on our people that are living in Bromley, and I would like to know what the plan is for looking at that in a wider sense. If these gases, and that's what they are chewing into people's paint, then that means it's chewing into their lung tissue and it's being absorbed through their skin. And I think I'm requesting advice on long-term effects, psychological and physiological, of exposure to this type of chemical pollution, and what our outlook is for actually doing something about that. I mean, at the moment, there's very much here and now. Let's pay your power bill, let's give you a Prezi card. But a lot of adults in Bromley, it's a low socioeconomic area. How many of these adults are actually going to the doctor that should be going to the doctor? Are they going to use that $200 to go to the doctor? Is there other ways that we can be supporting them in respects of their health? And do we have anybody looking into what long-term effects are? Are these people going to be developing lung conditions that are going to stay with them, especially our young children? Are these conditions, are they transient? Are they going to go away in September, or are they going to stick around? So I don't know where we go from here, but it's not something that I'm seeing a lot of in the communication that's coming from council or even in media. There's occasionally somebody will put something they found on YouTube, on Facebook. But I actually think this is a really important issue for the area, and we need to be discussing it, and we need to be getting this information out for everybody.
Yeah, thank you,
Well
Jackie.
put.
I totally agree with that, and that is something that I took to council.
Yeah.
Last week. And yeah, I think you're right, like there is a lot around financial compensation and a little bit around well-being. But I totally agree with you, it is the health thing, that is the most important, because if you don't have your health, what do you have? And again, I agree with you, the long-term effects of it, I think there's enough being done around that. And there were suggestions to set up like a health register as well, where we can actually monitor ongoing effects. And have it within the community, so it's actually accessible for the people of Bromley. But you're also correct about the cost of healthcare as well, just getting to the doctor.
A suggestion of a health register? Like, where is it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so,
Where is it?
so we have passed a resolution requesting that a health register be started. One of the things that's difficult about that is that health is not our mandate. The wastewater treatment plant is, and the CDHB board have been missing in action. Like we hear stuff from CDHB staff, those kind of things, but no one's going to the elected CDHB and going, hang on, but they're coming to council. You know, it's actually really frustrating. They're coming to council and saying, do this on health, and not to the elected board, because the CDHB need to step up their comms. On this and their information.
Well, can we do something about that? Because these are, you know, people who don't have a lot of resources of their own.
Absolutely.
I mean, even being able to put a drop-in GP clinic where they can go without having to pay, or making a GP visits available outside of that $200, because they're going to get the $200 and spend it on doing their washing or paying their power bill.
I think we need to approach the actual governance board of CDHB and not just, because it's just been a staff to staff level.
No, that's not good enough from the CDHB. We need to
maybe we look at writing a letter on behalf of the board to the board of CDHB. And ask for a response from them and ask them what their plans are moving forward. And if we can be assistance.
I think it's a great
needs to be stepped up, and we need to put the pressure on, because I mean, yes, I understand the pressure that the council's under to get it fixed, but we also, even though health isn't our mandate, we do have responsibility to our people when their health is being impacted.
Thank you, Jackie. Yanni?
Just a few suggestions. One is we should probably write to Ashley Bloomfield, if he's still the Director of Health. So, I mean, because it is pretty ironic that they basically forced us to chlorinate our water because of some big risk. Now we've got a real life thing that's having an impact on people, and they're nowhere to be seen. I think the board should call a meeting with them and invite the medical officer of health to actually come talk to the community about what they're doing around addressing the health concerns. I've repeatedly asked that council, because I've been told that council, ECAN and CDHB are having regular meetings, and I've asked for what the agreed actions are and the outcomes of those meetings are, and all I've been advised is that they've organised more meetings. I mean, it doesn't help people. It tells us nothing. They must be working on this. And as Sarah said, council hasn't actually established a health register. We've actually asked the CDHB to consider setting one up, but it is really critical.
We're not supposed to hold private health information.
I mean, there are challenges obviously around sensitive information around individuals, but also like just today we find out that the hubs have had their hours cut back rather than being extended, which like is unbelievable. So, you know, we should be trying to look at how we can get support to people as soon as possible with the agreed support that we've already agreed to. Not reducing the opportunity if we get it. So I don't know. I mean, again, like I've raised, like, I think the community boards have been completely out of the loop on this. I don't know what the communications are between our government staff and senior management. I thought last meeting we asked maybe Alex, if you and Michelle could talk to the chief executive. I think the board should actually write formally to the chief executive asking for what is happening and what is being done.
We've got a meeting coming up on Friday.
Okay, well maybe you could ask what resources are being put in to help these vulnerable communities and what staff resources can the board access to get support. But this is a crisis. I mean, in my view, this is an absolute.
It's a health crisis, and that's a term that has not been, it's been called an environmental crisis. It's a health crisis, and they have serious concerns.
We don't know that it's a health crisis, and we should write to the Canterbury Medical Officer of Health, if not the CDHB as well. Haven't our staff already pledged to keep the community board in better contact over this one?
Yeah. Thanks, Jack. Tim?
Yeah, as you know, I wear different hats on different occasions. My first job was as a toxicologist in the clinical biochem department at Christchurch Hospital for 7 years. My feeling about this is that it's terribly frightening. That there won't be, I would doubt whether there are any long-term studies on the effects of hydrogen sulfide and methylmercaptans and mercaptans on people, because people just don't stay around when those things are there. So I think we're in a situation where knowledge will be hard to come by, that we don't know what's going to happen to these people. I think as a board, we should push hard to get as much information as we can, or make sure that information is gathered and in places where people can get hold of it and understand it. I'm not saying that there is a problem. I'm saying it won't be known. We don't just won't know. But these things are not that safe short term. Yeah.
We should be collecting the data.
Absolutely.
CDHB. Minimum, the data should be being collected, and if the CDHB is dropping balls, then we need to actually write them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so I think we've got a couple of actions coming out of this to write to the CDHB.
And the medical health,
That's
chief
right.
medical officer.
Yeah.
Invite them to a meeting.
Yeah.
A community meeting to explain.
Absolutely.
That might be good. We can help organise.
Well, it might be better for the board to go to a DHB meeting.
Yes.
If it's possible, I don't know.
Public forum though?
I don't know.
I can ask.
They invite people to the meetings.
It's a different.
I think it's a really good
We should be
idea,
able
before
to-
the board disappears, right?
Yeah.
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 I think it's a really good idea, go Alex.
Okay, we can look at doing that as well. Cool. Thank you for bringing that up, Jackie. Okay, Daryl.
Thank you. Both of my, we're on blue here.
I know, what does that mean?
That means
You're
someone
still on
else is
green,
on.
okay.
Wait a minute, I just need to. Oh.
Thank you, we're okay now. Both of my queries or comments relate to Bromley. The first one is thanks to Jackie for the clarity and the focus she's brought to the finer issues with respect to health. But on that note, I note that there's been commentary in the media today about listening to the Bromley residents and promise that going forward more listening will be done. But the point I really want to make is that this board has been quite proactive with respect to the Bromley issue, not always listened to. Really, I want to extend a vote of thanks to Yanni and to Alex, who have been very much at the cutting edge of what has been happening in Bromley, as others have been, but to a lesser extent. And they have brought consistency to it. And it's something that I've been involved with, but obviously not as actively involved as you guys have been. In a way, the comment that I've made here is we told you so, but the message somehow didn't always get through. So thanks, Yanni, and thank you, Alex. The second point that I want to raise relates to the Bromley traffic issues, and I went back to the communication that we had on the 5th of the 10th, 2021, where there was communication sent from the traffic mailing list about the proposals and the traffic implementation plan. My question is, where are we at with that? Why is it taking so long? And what is the proposed timeline to get some perhaps definitive feedback?
We actually had a briefing from the team in March or April, I can't remember which. And we've had meetings scheduled, which have been unfortunately cancelled or postponed because we've had COVID.
Sure.
One lot of COVID after the next after the next.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the meeting was supposed to, the postpone was supposed to be on Tuesday, but there was more COVID. It's been rescheduled for next Tuesday for the community group to get together. I hope it's going to happen. And I can come back to you once we've done that, and we'll send something out to the wider community once we've had that conversation. It's just that we've not been able to. It's unfortunately been cancelled once, we postponed one time after 3 times now.
Thank you, thanks. And my final quick query relates to St. Helena Square and Sumner. Are we in a position for an update as yet? I think the last time I asked was things were imminent, but it's almost been a year.
I have been trying to get hold of, I've emailed, Liz's emailed, haven't actually been able to get hold of the particular person on the phone. Have tried a number of times, and I will get back to you on that one. It's
Thank
not
you.
that we're not trying.
No, because it's all right. It's just clarification. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl.
Ms. Shaldiniani. So just to reiterate, I guess what Jackie and others have said in terms of the health concerns, and just wanting to clarify, if we're writing to the chair and members of the DHB, I guess that just checking in on what we'd be asking, because I think what the community want is to know what the planning is around addressing health impacts, what data is being collected, and also the progress on establishing the health register. So I just want to make sure that that's what will be included at the very least in the letter. And also, I guess, how that information is going to be conveyed, both in particular to the community. So just moving on from that to something somewhat less momentous. But on the same day actually that the Dawson Street deputation came to us, we also had one around Hereford Street, and I'm just checking in on the progress of that because I see that the due date was the 18th of May. So there was a public forum, and it was to do with repairs of Hereford Street between Fitzgerald and Stanmore Road, confirming that the repair would be a patch one, and also looking at the noise issue.
From the gravel?
Yeah.
We are working with staff to get the answer back to you.
Okay, it's just because it would be on the due date. And I guess I'm just conscious as well that we had another public forum on the same day and there was quite a lot of progress made on that one.
No,
Yeah.
We have been working with staff.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Michelle. Yanni?
I think, yeah, I just want to check on the problem. So have you got enough people on the community group, and is that community group getting together next week?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Can we get a list of who's on it so we know?
Yes.
It's just I've had people contact me that haven't said that they haven't heard.
Okay, you sent me their details?
Yeah.
That's
Cool.
probably
Yeah. Well,
So
so it's a people or person?
person.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
right. That person has been communicated with since. Yeah.
Right, okay. And just wanted to check on the parking restrictions as well around the sports field, because obviously we're in the middle of winter and all the winter sports are playing, and people are pretty distressed about the behaviour of the parking.
The action is in progress. Which sports?
This is around
Round Runs Road, Kearney's Road.
Roads, because
It's Linfield Fields.
Yeah. So do we have an expected kind of outcome? I mean, we just did 2 traffic things today.
I know the staff member is working on it. They're collecting the previous information from
Okay.
our previous area transport persons who used to be in the council. And it's gathering.
Right, okay.
The action only would even be 3 months. Yet, Joni.
Yeah. Okay, cool, thank you. Just, sorry, just one other thing. The council staff have put a memo up about the implementation of the strengthening communities strategy. But I just wondered whether the board should seek a briefing on what the implications are for the board, because I'm just mindful that there's a number of things that they're asking the board to do more without any resource. And it might be quite good for us to become aware of what it is that council is now expecting us to do, and maybe to offer some suggestions around things that we might be able to either help or we might need resources for. Cool. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Johnny. I attended the Summit Road Society AGM last night, so yeah, your apologies for Rivington. But yeah, just wanted to give a very brief update. It sounds like everything's ticking along really well for all the organisations that are involved in that area of Christchurch. Just a massive shout out to all of the volunteers that are working within all of the organisations. They're getting so much positive work done. And the accredited free Fort Hills team is, yeah, pretty amazing by the sounds of it. So yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge them and the work that they're doing. They're doing some fantastic stuff. So yeah, is that. I just also wanted to bring up, Sarah, you briefly mentioned it, the cars driven by rocks situation.
Just awful.
It's terrible. So there's been like a bit from the community, like obviously it's freaked people out quite a lot. And there's been a few questions around, like, is it possible to speak with police in a public meeting or something like that? I'm not sure whether it would just be like within that area or around the hills area, because there's
Well, get down through midnight.
yeah.
What happened?
Some young hooligans. I don't know.
Oh yeah, the police are pretty sure they know who it is.
Yeah, they broke into a car, started it, and put some rocks on the accelerator and set it off down the hill by itself. Several, and one on the flat stuff.
On the same night.
Same night, and a you know, it's very narrow with you know, family and stuff.
Yeah. So I just wanted to mention it. I don't, you know, like as a community board, like what do we do? It's obviously like a police matter. But there has been questions from the community. Is there a way that they can speak with police? So I don't know if it's something that we can help happen. I'm not saying it's something that we would run, obviously. But
Yeah, I mean, as a start, we could send a request through to police for some extra community patrols in the area.
Yeah.
As a starter.
yeah, so actually we could message community patrol as well.
Yeah, and community patrols.
Yeah.
As a start would be really good.
Yeah,
The board can request both of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, is this something you think we should request in a public meeting? It's not.
potentially, but I think like if we get that, I think that would be a good request. I think that's a great idea. Yanni?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, unfortunately, we've also seen this behaviour in Bromley.
Oh, totally.
I mean, I've got
Yeah.
years of pictures back there. I mean, it's horrific. So
Yeah.
I think
It's not even just a Bromley issue, it's actually across the whole city.
across the city, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure that a public
Yeah, I
meeting
think
would
it'd be
be the
helpful.
best approach.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think maybe what we should do is just pass the concerns on. We've just had
Yeah.
the police come and talk to us,
Yeah,
which is
exactly.
really good.
I'm requesting extra patrols.
And it sounds like they're aware of the issue.
Yes.
And also we are getting the naval policing team back, but we might like to get a more specific
Hmm.
update, because I think what we heard is that they're working through their work program.
Yeah.
And we might like, as was said, we might like to just extend and say, you know, could they just extend a little bit further and just maybe some of the things
Yeah,
on a every, you know, on more frequent basis.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So, we can write to police and to community patrol requesting extra patrols in the area. And also, I think that's good for now.
Yeah.
But what did you just say, Annie? Sorry.
And they
Update.
have a policing team, like.
More of an update around what they'll actually be doing.
Yeah, I
think
understand.
that'd
They were going away to have a strategy
Yeah.
session about what they'd be doing.
Yeah.
And we might like just to fit back to.
Yeah.
running off a window.
Yeah. So
That
that's a good idea.
we've just had a, we've had this whole situation.
Yeah.
Like them just to consider, spending a little bit of time.
So get an update from you around what their work will look like.
Yep.
Cool, thank you. And I had someone ask around the Radley Park bollards. Do we have an update around those at all?
We have an action in the system, Madam Chair, from last meeting.
Oh, it's only last night, okay.
I know, sometimes time. goes-
Not 3 months. That's cool. Okay. All right, that is me. All good. Okay. Cool, well, we will now close the meeting. Yeah.
Moving to the.
Oh, we're going to.
So we're not doing standard price.
No, we're going
Not
to
mine.
do it.